Hi, I'm James Shillinglaw, and I'm here with a familiar face if you've been watching us, Matthew Upchurch, who is the chairman and CEO of Virtuoso, the luxury network of great travel advisors, great luxury travel suppliers. And Matthew, just a few weeks ago, finished the Virtuoso Symposium, which was held on Silver Dawn. And it was a rare symposium that I did not go to. And so I thought I'd catch up with him now to find out what happened, and then also look ahead and seeing what's going to happen to the luxury travel market as we emerge from the pandemic. Everything looks good. Yeah, we got a little war thing going on, but hopefully that isn't going to affect us too much, but we'll see what happens. But so we're going to talk with Matthew today, and we're going to find out about all that and more on Insider Travel Report. Now, first of all, Matthew, how are you and where are you?
Well, I'm actually at home.
Wonders be wonders, right?
And this is where I absconded myself for a couple of years, but it's been so incredibly rewarding and energizing to be out on the road, like you. I think you and I are competing for where.
We were debating earlier about who was winning on this.
I don't know. I still think you win.
You told me
James.
I was, but
I still think you win. But it is. I will say it. If you ever doubted that human connection thing we've been talking about for decades, boy, once you get around people and reconnect, I mean, and by the way, there's a lot of really real science around that. I won't bore you with those details today, but there really is a lot of science around the fact that when human beings are physically together, you really do share heart energy in other ways. So that human connection thing, it's a real thing.
I absolutely. For a while there, I was watching your Facebook, and I thought it was the Matthew Upchurch birthday tour, because you seem to be about everyone's birthdays. You were there, like.
Well, you know what? I did turn 60 the day that we got on Silver Dawn, which I had nothing to do with. Our wonderful Muriel Wilson was the one that set all that up, along with Jennifer and her team, and I have to say I didn't. So it was not the Matthew party cruise. But
it could have been.
Yeah, I will say though that, you know what, when I decided, I'm going to turn 60, I'm going to go ahead and own it. So pretty much, if you don't know I'm 60 by now, that you probably it's certainly been all over the place. I decided, why not? Let's go for it.
Yeah, no, well, Matthew, as we all know, 60 is the new 40. So
that's what they say.
That's where you have to.
That's what they say.
And I beat you by a couple years, but I'm hanging in there. I still feel pretty good. So let's talk about that Virtuoso Symposium that was on Silver Dawn in Lisbon and sort of circling around there. What was the mood of your travel agency members, those who attended, about the market today, and also the mood of the preferred suppliers who attended?
Well, actually, it's kind of funny because when David Kollner was kind of emceeing the thing, we were showing up the word cloud that we've done at the different symposiums. And the number one, and it's amazing because the number one word in the word cloud, right? And I actually have a little visual of it here. It says right here, optimistic.
There you go.
And it's but we were laughing with the network. We were saying, it's the same main word that you guys had in the middle of the pandemic.
I know.
So
that's true.
Yeah, you do have in here, exhausted and overwhelmed sometimes, and this and that and the other. But overall, optimistic. People were. I mean, obviously, we know what's going on with the actual, what's going on with business. Now, to give you the specifics, we went ahead and did a poll in February. We went from with the early Omicron in the first quarter in January. Optimism was down to 43%, neutral was 42%, pessimistic was 15%, but then by February, 71% positive, and then really jumped tremendously, only 3% pessimistic. Partners were also very much. Now that's overall, just as a reminder, we have Virtuoso advisors all over the world.
Sure.
And it was really one of the ones I loved the most was that our Canadians, you want to talk about how quickly things change? The Canadian numbers went from a low of 24%, right, in January to 82% by February. So in just a little over 2 months, beginning of January, end of February, basically Canada just went through the roof. So it also shows you how quickly, and we had numbers there from Australia as well, which, talk about a place that got locked down.
Well, now that's open too. I think all you got to do is open up after COVID, and people are going to start to feel even better, it seems. And that's the way it is. But so far, from what you were hearing then and what you've seen now, most people say sort of COVID is over. We do have some things that we got to fix, like the inbound testing requirement for the U.S., which we hoped would have been fixed this month, but now looks like it might not be till May. If that's fixed, I think that's going to be a big boost. But we do have this horrible war going on in Ukraine. Is that affecting business at all, except for, direct things like, people who don't want to go on Baltic cruises because maybe St. Petersburg isn't included, things like that? Or is it just so far not really affecting the luxury travel business?
What we heard was, first of all, I do want to acknowledge, though, that you're right. We're out of COVID. I will say, though, the inbound testing is huge, and everybody is busy right now. So you can only imagine what's going to happen when that happens. There is the reality. I have heard from a number of people. I mean, it is more complicated than it's ever been, right? I mean, so it is more taxing. There is no question that right now, being an advisor, I flew back from Chicago with our very own Nancy Strong, and she goes, I'm a insurance specialist, I'm a health specialist, I'm a this. I mean, it's definitely more complex than ever. But I've called it kind of the popcorn economy. The other thing that's an issue, which is really interesting, is, in Portugal, in Italy, in the UK, everybody had different quarantine rules, right? When you tested, I mean, you got to the UK, it was like the Texas or Florida of Europe. I mean, it's like, nobody was, no mask, no this, no whatever. But so there's still an issue around some of that. I will say that seeing people be able to quarantine in luxury hotels, and the fact that insurance programs will actually cover that stuff, that's something I think we never saw. So, I mean, literally, I knew of people that were quarantining in Virtuoso in hotels, and quarantining only like Virtuosos would, with, daily room service and champagne and balconies, right?
And that's our kind of quarantine, Matthew, as you know.
But back to your point about the Ukraine, I mean, we saw about right at the beginning of the war, there was a little bit of maybe a couple of weeks, I think, as the war's gone on, there is some regional, our number two in our finance department is from the Ukraine. In fact, her dad just arrived from Lviv a few weeks ago. So I don't want to, I want to make sure that that's a real travesty that's going on there. But I will say that I think that when you ask me that question, I think the reality is you got to separate these two things. In luxury travel, there's always been the number one thing that always affected luxury travel was the stock market, right? That was the direct correlation. And then there used to be also these issues around there might be the regionality piece of it will affect some of that travel, but it was a little bit of the psychographic pieces. Like, should I be having this kind of fun while I see this kind of tragedy going? And I think that in the volatility of the stock market and volatility in geopolitics, I think we're seeing something we've never seen before, which is because everybody was held down for over 2 years,
right? That
we're not seeing the normal correlations. Will it eventually level out? Probably. But right now it's like, it's a mental health. It's like, I got to get out there. I got to out there do something. Yeah. So I think I think that's one of the reasons we're seeing that geopolitics and financial volatility are not having probably as much an effect because of the need and desire to get out there.
So the pent-up demand that came out of COVID is kind of pushing everything else aside and say, I'm going to travel no matter what. And I'm going to go because I can't control this right now. I've talked to a few people about this, is that in a way, hard to say COVID's benefited anybody, but in terms of resistance to not traveling and want to go out there and get it, I think it really has helped.
Well, all throughout the pandemic, I would always say, boy, I tell you what, nothing motivates human behavior like having something taken away that you took for granted. And I will share one funny thing, that in October of 2020, I went out to this, health program I do out in California, and it's 16 people max per stay, and it's either Virtuoso clients or they could be. So it's always like a focus group, and you're there and you get to know each other because communal table. But one of my favorite lines of the pandemic, which is coming true, very wealthy lady from Santa Barbara, found out what I did, says, oh my gosh, I love to travel. Wanted a referral, which was great. But I'll never forget her line. She goes, you better tell your travel advisors to take their vitamins and get ready, because once I can travel, you're not going to stop me. And then she said, because you know why? There's only so much wine and so much furniture I can buy. Which I still think was the funniest damn lines of the pandemic.
It's perfect. Now I'm not going to ask you about destinations necessarily, but I want to find out in terms of products, luxury cruises, tours, resorts, and hotels. Yeah. What's really sort of selling well? Or are they all selling well?
Pretty much right now. I have to tell you, anybody's got decent availability. And Europe is, despite what we just said about Ukraine, Europe is very, very hot. Cities are making a big comeback. Now, I do have, for the summer of 2022, top 10 destinations. The U.S. is still, U.S. mountains, open space, all this stuff. But even the cities are having a big resurgence because people have had that pent-up demand. Then, of course, it's starting to look a little more normal. But it's U.S., Italy, in this order, U.S., Italy, France. Canada is seeing a huge resurgence.
Right.
Greece, UK, Spain, Mexico, Ireland, and Switzerland.
Yeah, well, and I think did you mention Italy? I've heard Italy is going crazy now in terms of everybody wants to go back there. I do. I mean, everybody, that's where you want to go, Europe. Now let's turn to something. So destinations are looking good. Product categories are looking good. We have gotten this is about 2.5 years now. And you and your team work diligently to help your members survive through COVID. Are they emerging in pretty good shape and ready to do business? And how have they survived?
Well, first of all, if anybody would have given us the numbers, like the quantitative numbers of what was going to happen to travel, and then you were asked to predict how well we would all make it out of this. Even my wildest positive forecast probably would have been would have matched it. Now I have to say again, I'll take this opportunity. The great work of ASTA. I mean, this is a moment where, for years, I always felt that the number one and most important job of ASTA was advocacy.
Right.
So I'm proud that I was the honorary chairman of the ASTA PAC, and that we did all the work that we did to set us up for that. So I want to thank Zane and Eben and everybody there. I think we had that help, but also I think that we came together as a community. We really worked, within 3 weeks of the pandemic, we took something that was very core to Virtuoso, which is collaboration and sharing and all that, and we created these things called collaboration teams, where when our people couldn't travel, we basically set up, we used our infrastructure with teams and all that, and then put together collaboration teams where people were just helping each other out. Hey, I don't know what to do here. I don't know how to furlough. What am I doing here, et cetera. But also there was a lot of emotional support.
Sure.
I started, I announced the postponement of Symposium in 2020 was my first video. And then I did a video every single week all through 2020, and then every other week last year and this year. So we really over communicating, relying on helping each other and all that. And then the other thing we did on the marketing side, I'll never forget that day. I remember being down at Turtle Inn, Francis Ford Coppola's place in Belize, literally the week that the cruise industry was shutting down.
Right, remember.
And I remember thinking, how do you market? What do you do? It kind of reminded me about September 12th of 2001. Like, what do you do respectfully, right? Mm-hmm. And that's when we came up with our campaign about the triple bottom line of travel, right? The dreaming, the doing, and the remembering. And we decided that's where we would double down on the idea of engaging, helping our members engage their customers, because just because we couldn't travel didn't mean that we couldn't dream about it. So overall, I would say that, I think everybody came out of it a little bit better. We supported each other. It was very tough, but I do think that a lot of the infrastructure and a lot of things that we've been working on and the ability to share, the support amongst each other was huge. So I would say, and another thing that's really, I take my hat off to our network, to our members, but also the industry as a whole. I think a lot of people also used it as a very important time to update processes, technologies, things to do like that.
Absolutely. Well, it's great. We're emerged. We're going. And actually, just before the pandemic, you had told me you were launched a sort of new strategic plan to kind of reimagine Virtuoso, and obviously then COVID hit, and obviously there's been some changes in the executive positions and things like that. But are you on track with that plan now? Are you almost there yet to make that plan succeed? Do you have the right people in place now?
Yeah, what's very well, I can't tell you. I've said the story many times, is the fact that in the summer of 2018, we had 34 years of great success, but as the network became more global, more diverse, as our members and our advisors became even more and more sophisticated, everybody kept raising their game. We realized that an organization that had grown organically over a period of 35, 36 years, right, that it's kind of the analogy that I use structurally, and that's ultimately my responsibility, is that, it's kind of like you had a great piece of property ocean front. And when you first started building on it, you built all these cute little cottages, but then here you are 35 years later, and you realize you need a 20-story skyscraper. Well, 20 cottages, stacked on top of each other does not make a 20-story skyscraper. You need a whole different foundation, a whole different set of wirings. And so I'm very grateful that we use the same, I've shared with a lot of you over the years, and you, James, that I run the company based off of a famous book called The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni, and the Table Group in San Francisco. I highly recommend it. And we hired somebody in the summer of 18 in organizational design to help us put together this new structure. We actually finished that year and a half of work in December of 19.
Right.
So I was about to announce it in January of 2020. I thought, no, I'll just wait till Symposium 2020 because it's going to be the anniversary of the brand. And obviously we know what happened. So it's been very helpful from the perspective of that we've created an organization that has a lot more specialization. And there were some other areas that I honestly didn't know. I mean, we didn't fully understand. I didn't understand some of the areas of expertise that, quite frankly, the Table Group helped us identify that were completely missing, like modern day product management, the discipline of product management, some of the other things that you needed to have to be a more digital, more configurable organization. And I think that from a Virtuoso perspective, our strength is our diversity. Sure. But in order to be really value add to a more diverse organization, you have to be more configurable, right? You need to create products and services that could be enmeshed in, frankly, almost an innumerable number of business models and approaches to the marketplace. And that's what we've been doing. So we've added a lot of positions. We've grown both internationally and through all these different things. So I'm very grateful that that's where we were, and very excited about the team. The gentleman, the young man that joined us to be our chief operating officer, Brad Borland, he actually has been on my board since I started it more than 8 years ago, but he also started. So he may be new around the network front facing, but he's been around for over a decade.
No, absolutely. So, and you do have a mix of some new faces, but also some very familiar faces. Yes. Obviously, David Kollner, I've known him for years. A great guy, and people really, I was told David he has another career as a stand-up comedian, but he's done very well at Virtuoso and really has helped it, and now he's been recognized for that, and we'll look forward to seeing him at Virtuoso Travel Week, and that's kind of the next topic I want to get to, because we do have upcoming. I missed the symposium, but I hope you'll invite me to Virtuoso Travel Week. And there we will see, now how big is Virtuoso Travel Week going to be this year?
We're kind of ready for it. We did something we've never done before. We did an early access thing for about, I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks that closed in March, sometime in March. And we have almost 2,000 people signed up. So that's already more people than we had all of last year, of course, so all indications are that it's going to be big. We've got a lot of tremendous interest. So I'm really excited about it. Everybody's been talking about it. So it's great to see all that interest, and all of our forums that we're holding. I'm going to be in Cartagena in about a week and a half for the forum there. We're holding a forum in Toronto. We just finished doing the forum in London. And then, of course, we had the one in San Antonio. So those are all good. We're also doing the Virtuoso on tours.
Right.
We had one in LA at the Century Plaza that was very successful. Doing a couple of others, one in Miami as well. But yeah, no, I think Virtuoso Travel Week, like I said, we already have 500 more people than we had all of last year. And everything looks really good. So the Bellagio and MGM have been such great partners. We've been able to set aside really great allotments for there. So I'm excited about it.
So you're going to have the whole three. You're going to have Aria and Bellagio and Vdara again. So
yeah.
The usual suspects. But do you think it's going to get up to what it was in 2019? I think it was 6,500.
It was about 6,300. I don't know. I think there's still, a little bit of recovery depending. We still have, Asia's still not back to the
right.
to the levels and things, whatever. But by the way, we also what will be different is that, unlike 2019, is that we've had a tremendous success. And I really want to commend our team, because I'm not just saying, I've had a lot of people in the industry say that our virtual events were, the set the bar out there.
Right.
And I will say that we had over 1,500 people on the virtual Virtuoso Travel Week last year, and that'll be different. So we'll have numbers that will be very healthy. I don't know exactly what that'll be at this point, but we will also have a hybrid. So for us, hybrid is here to stay.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. Although, as you said at the beginning of this, in person is still a great way to communicate, and I'm looking forward to being in person at Virtuoso Travel Week in August. Now, closing question: we've gone through all this. We've gone through COVID now, 2.5 years. We got a war in Ukraine. How has luxury travel managed through this? Has anything fundamentally changed in terms of luxury travel and luxury travel clients? Are people, you said there's a pent-up demand, and now they seem to be wanting to travel even more, and that's obviously one thing. But anything else that you can think of that's really, changed fundamentally about luxury travel now?
Well, I think I think one of my favorite things that I shared during the pandemic was that disruptions accelerate trends. And, 2019 was the high watermark of travel. We're still missing 100 million Chinese travelers
right.
out there, and things are already busy. So who knows what's going to happen with this geopolitical stuff, but that will come back. And so I think that a couple of things. Number one, one of the reasons that travel was also big is the number of generations that are all traveling at the same time.
Right.
In the numbers they're traveling. What we're trying to build at Virtuoso is an and business, meaning that it's not the millennials or the baby boomers. It's not this or that. It's and. This is where I think it's really interesting, because I think that the motivation and the way in which in the way you market and manage travel and how you go after these different market segments is become more fragmented, right? Because people are but at the same time, the overall size of the market is, I think, going to be bigger than ever. Mm-hmm. I do think that that some of the ways in which we approach things, for example, the way in which the client becomes more strategic about how they're booking their travel, with more like a financial plan, like we've been talking about for years. I think that's there. And I also think that sustainability,
right.
It's interesting because I've heard it at numerous meetings and stuff. When people get asked, advisors, they say, but are people asking for sustainable trips? And a lot of times an advisor will say, well, no, they're not really. Well, first of all, that's the problem with the word. Mm. What I can tell you about sustainability, it's purpose, it's meaningfulness. We have a lot of data on high net worth individuals around the world where, particularly when you're seeing the geopolitical stuff and things that are going on, it's like, I want to make sure that I'm spending this kind of money that I feel good about it too, right? And that there's some sort of socially, redeeming validity to it all. And so one of the things that I keep saying is here's the market opportunity for advisors. It's not about they're going to come in and say, ask me this. We actually had a young man in his 40s. Of course, now that's a young man for me, right? But he had never used the Virtuoso Travel Advisor. He was a consultant at a prestige, well, actually at the Table Group, and never used whatever. Started using a Virtuoso Advisor, Kate Caruso, and just goes, oh my God, this has changed my life.
Yeah,
he helped us when we were talking about sustainability. He was the one, I love telling the story. He goes, oh my God, if you can make sure I'm going to have a fabulous vacation,
right,
but then make it easy on me to give my money to people that are doing really great things for people, planet, and culture,
sure,
I will see you at a different level of value to me and my family than somebody else. So the reality is, the market opportunity is, of course, the customer wants great experience. But if you make it easy for them, if you understand the backstory of how these products and these destinations or properties or companies are doing something good, that becomes a very, very powerful market opportunity.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. I think it was a few years ago when I was, I think it was in a session with your wife, Jessica, who is now running your, overseeing your sustainable operations. And it suddenly dawned on me, how do you make sustainable travel succeed? Well, it has to be profitable. It has to be something that people want to buy and they seek it out. And that's the biggest thing. And you can't just throw names at things. Sustainable for years we have, right? Green, eco, whatever. You and I have been around this about the same amount of time. 30 years we've been doing this, right? And
the last thing I want to say is, not on the traveler, because of the diversity of the traveler. The other thing is the opening line of my talk in Lisbon was literally, I had just turned 60 the day before. I said, I'm standing before you because I had the good fortune at the age of 24 to have been introduced to a group of boutique agency, luxury agency owners who were all then in their 60s or older, who were willing to collaborate and work with a 24-year-old. That was rare back then.
Right.
So I think one of the things you're going to see, I think there's two things that are hot on my radar right now. One of them is cross-generational collaboration. I think that is a recipe for success. And by the way, we've already seen it inside of Virtuoso. We started working on talent development in 2001. Cross-generational collaboration is amazing. One of the co-chairs of our millennial team was Vanessa Sotwell-Jones. She's now partnered, and she's in her 30s. She's partnered with a 65-year-old advisor, agent, quite frankly, who's really good at the process part. And it's kind of cool to see that. And what I love about cross-generational collaboration is we happen to be in an industry where people are more open-minded, more curious, than a lot of other industries. So there's a great advantage there. And I think the other thing that's hot on my radar is, for 20 years, the core competency of being a travel agent, 1977 to 1997, was process, right? The negative word for it was called order taker. Now, you could call an executive assistant an order taker. I tell you what, mine is worth her weight in gold or platinum or diamonds, whatever you want to do it, right? That's the negative connotation. You give me somebody that's great at process. And I think that and then all of a sudden, when the GDS, the DIY revolution came by, then all of a sudden we started the evolution of the travel advisor.
Right.
Well, that's left brain, right brain. I always joke that I could probably sell anybody to go anywhere in the world, but God help them if I booked it, right? And so I do think that there's another opportunity in the industry right now to look at not only finding talent in older baby boomers that don't want to retire, but don't want to have the same old job, and they don't want to work 40, 60 hours a week. And there's an opportunity in matching up what a term called unique ability, which is great front of house advisor types with great back of house processing types.
Sure.
So a little bit of the right brain, left brain working together.
No, I would totally agree. That the way that the agencies are structured and the way advisors work is going to change in that way, that you're going to have advisors and implementers and people. And I've met them. Sometimes they're, husband and wife teams, and the husband is in the back, doing all the legwork, and his wife is out front, bringing in the clients and being a relationship person. So it just doesn't pan. And you reminded me of, there was a point, I don't know, it was probably 5 to 10 years ago. You and I were both in our 50s then, and we both sort of crashed the millennial party at Virtuoso. And we were like, are they going to let us in?
But do you remember why we quit having that party within 2 years?
No, I didn't.
Because the growth in millennials became so huge that it was like, within like 3 years of that, like they were like 40% of everybody at Virtuoso Travel Week.
Yeah, you'd have to take out the whole nightclub for the final event for all the millennials.
Well, that's my New Year's Eve. I can't wait to bring that.
Well, we're looking forward to that. We missed that. Even last year we missed that.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have that reinstituted. Matthew, anything else you want to tell your Virtuoso members, your suppliers, and also our 100,000 travel advisors out there?
Well, first of all, I tell you what, anytime I talk to anybody on Wall Street, anybody outside our industry, I've never been prouder of who you all are, what you've done, how you've gone through this. And second of all, we are going to see the golden age of the travel advisor. So one of the things I remind you, make sure and actively get rid of the life suckers. If they don't appreciate you, get rid of them.
Absolutely. Good words to live by there. Matthew, I look forward to seeing you at Virtuoso Travel Week in Vegas, although I think I'll see you before then a few times as usual. I already have in the last few weeks. I wasn't at Symposium, but then I just saw you in Chicago. I'm sure we will run into each other a fair amount before August. But again, I do look forward to your big event, your New Year's Eve. And again, happy birthday. I wasn't able to be with you on your 60th, but I'm sure you had a great time just being surrounded by all the great people you have at Virtuoso.
Thank you.
I'm James Shillinglaw, and this is Insider Travel Report.